This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day. Carefully crafted for you by humans. So meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on the Fully Managed podcast. Thank you, Jesse and Gerardo, for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Hey, what's up?
How are you?
Good to have you.
How are you? I'm good. How are you?
We're good. Just here on a rainy Wednesday or Thursday in Toronto. I'm not sure when this podcast will go live, but we are riding high off of the Blue Jays win last night as they're one game away from winning the World Series. So by the time this podcast is released, we will know if they've won or not.
Well, for your sake, I hope that they do. I'm not really following it well, so I hope no one out there watching is mad at me. That's all. But anyway, guys, okay, so we're going to get to talking about you, but first we're doing a little brain break today. We're going to play a little game.
All right.
I personalize these games for every guest, so this is a new one. I hope that you have fun with it. I like a little absurdity, so this will be fun, hopefully. Okay. This game is called Tagline Tug of War. So what we are going to do is I am going to give you a random product, object, situation, and you are going to come up with a tagline for me. Or if a tagline is too much, sometimes that's a lot to put on the spot. Some like short campaign that you would do just to promote that. Is that cool?
Okay.
Yeah, damn. I'm an art director, so maybe I'll draw. I'll just draw one.
You just do it with your finger, and it's for the audio people. They won't be able to see anyway. So, okay. The first one is a toothbrush that tells you your brushing efficiency.
I love this game, by the way. This is crazy. This is crazy.
Talent for absurdity. Yeah. I create products that are really weird all the time.
I feel like this is a trap.
I know. I want to call it the plaque killer or something like that. Maybe. I don't know. That's a terrible answer. Yeah. We're off to a horrible
This is
start.
great.
It's okay, guys. It's okay. Well, okay. What do you look like?
Pass. You said we can pass.
Yeah. Okay. I'll give you another one. Okay. A coffee brand that only sells at night.
I'll call it Wide Awake.
Ooh, I like that.
Call it extremely up.
Yeah.
I think that's a good one just because I think that people are really drawn to incorrect grammar sometimes. Like, I think that when it's just something that stands out as something that, like, is slightly incorrect, I think those are really, like, great.
Oh, yeah. That's breakthrough, baby. That's what it is.
Okay. Next one, guys. A dating app for dog owners. Something tells me that this exists, but I
Puppy Love.
That's perfect.
Ooh, I don't know. I was going to say Sniff Connection, but Sniff Connection does not make sense. That sounds horrible.
Sounds almost disturbing.
We can move on now, I think.
Okay. Okay, I'll give you two more really quick. Okay. A cereal made entirely for adults who hate mornings. So this one, I'm thinking like a caffeinated cereal.
I want to call it Misery Mornings or something like that. Or
ooh, yeah.
I'm going to call it Mondays. Like, I think that's what it is.
It's very
like
deep.
Garfield cereal.
Really deep into your psyche.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I hate mornings, so I think that would be a great cereal for me. By the way, feel free to take all these products and run with them. I invented them. I'm not taking credit. You can have them. You want to create your own brand?
You're going to see a big giant can line winning campaign for a caffeinated cereal coming out next year.
Are you really?
No.
Oh, you were just moving a bit. I was like, that would be a crazy coincidence. I'm surprised it hasn't been invented already. I'm gonna be honest. But anyway, okay, last one. A smart pillow that tracks your sleeping patterns and adjusts its shape based off of your movements. I want this to exist so badly.
Wow. I'm thinking about it really hard now. This is actually kind of a cool product, you know?
I would love to have this product.
I think that's it. I think
Yeah, I'm going to call it Sleep Well or something like that, but that's pretty lame.
That already exists. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a sleep well?
Sometimes
there's a
sometimes
sleep
the
well.
obvious answers are the right answers.
That's completely true. That's probably why it already exists.
We're really bad at this game. I think that's what I realized. Like,
I'm so sorry. Well, in all fairness for everyone watching, I think this is proof that it takes a lot more work to create something amazing rather than 5 seconds of thinking. So if anything, I think that you guys are just evidence that it's a lot of hard work to create a successful and standout campaign. So I think if anything, this just proves that. But thank you guys for being my guinea pigs and participating in my game. But I want to start this out by you guys telling us a little bit about yourself, your journey, like to being partners. That's crazy. I see that that's not something that is always long lasting for people. It's a difficult journey to be able to make sure that you're creatively working together in an efficient way and like that you're both happy. And so I'd love to hear more about that. And then tell me a little bit about what you're doing today.
Gonna go?
For sure, yeah. I think Gerardo and I met in school. We went to advertising school here in Toronto at a college called Humber College. And I think what's really fun about this industry in advertising is if you're a creative person, you're often paired with another person. So I had a background in wanting to be like a copywriter, and Gerardo's background is to be wanting to be a graphic designer, art director. And what's I think so fun about advertising is you work in teams, which people I think always find really unique. And I think what's special about us is that we actually, when we met in that school, we have worked together ever since then. So oftentimes in this career, people, switch partners when they either like kind of switch agencies. And there's few partnerships that, are that like kind of go the gamut and last a really long time. And I think so far we've worked together for about 13 years, which is I think kind of, our secret sauce is sort of really special. So I always joke that the last time I worked alone, I worked at a restaurant and I was 22 years old or something like that. So we met at Humber. We got our first job together at an agency called Juniper Park. It was part of TVWA. And then since then, we've worked at a few different agencies in Toronto, an agency called John Street. We worked in the States for 3 years at an agency called Matejzik Hoffer that's now VCCP. And then we came back to Toronto, and now we're working at an agency called Courage, where we are creative directors on a variety of different brands. And I think, I see most people on the subway every morning going to their jobs by themselves and, pressing the little elevator button by themselves. I gladly think, I never have to do that because we're always together.
Oh, that's really
I think probably, one of the most fun parts about this job as a creative person is that you always have somebody that you're working with and that you're making decisions with and that you're spending time with. So I feel very lucky that we're two people that enjoy each other's company. And I think we both like kind of push each other creatively. So I think that's what's kept me, I think, in this business for so long is, every day is fun because you get to go to work with your best buddy.
Thank you, Jesse. Very
It's really wholesome.
God, very inspired.
I have a ton of questions about that because that is such a long time. But I do want to hear about what you're doing today as well. Tell me about like what you're excited about, and then I can get into that more.
Yeah, today, I think today we're doing a few things, but I think one thing we're very excited about actually is a recent campaign that we just launched for Rona. which is a home and hardware store in Canada, and it's something that I think we released it last week.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I think when you work on a project that just really takes your passion for something and also personal experiences, and a lot of it's actually inspired by Jesse's childhood. So I let him talk about the campaign, but it's something that I think have brought us a lot of joy in the process of working on it.
Yeah, and so today we were just kind of looking at it. Just got some love on some different kind of like blogs, and on the Kodak Instagram account just posted it this morning. So we were just kind of looking at that, which was, I think, really, really exciting. So we're a little bit of today. Our day basically is a little bit of that as this campaign is being launched, and then we're also doing a few different other things. We're working on a pitch, a big exciting pitch for a new account, which I think is really fun. And then we're working on this afternoon, kind of brainstorming on a project which I can't talk too much about, but I think. Okay. So today's sort of a mixture of a few different things, and I think what's fun about this is like you're always in a different like I think because of like part of the creative process on a few different projects. So we have one project that's just at the door that's being released, one project that we're trying to win so then we can work on it, and another project that we are in the early stages of like writing scripts and brainstorming on. So it's sort of, I think, really nice to have this sort of like mixture of work where you're some projects are a little bit more polished, some are like you're just in the writing stage, maybe some that you're in the writing stage, but now you're like hiring directors and stuff like that. So I think today's one of those days where we have a few different projects all at different phases of their like kind of on their road to completion.
Yeah, don't you love how general and kind of specific that is at the same time? Because we're like, we're doing this, but we can't tell you what it is. But we're also doing this, we can't tell you what it is.
I mean, all these. We walk into the office every day and just sign NDAs nonstop. So.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. This is a regular occurrence. Don't worry. People have to talk kind of vaguely about their campaigns a lot of the time, even if they have come out, because there's things that you're not allowed to say about them and whatever. So I completely understand. But I do appreciate the what you said about the process, because it's really cool that you get to be at every step for different campaigns at a time, because I'm sure maybe there's a certain part of the process that is more tedious or a little more boring than like another part of the process. So you kind of keep getting to exercise what you think is fun during that, and also kind of still get experience in all of those areas rather than just working on one campaign to completion, then doing the next, and then, so it probably maintains momentum in that way.
Totally. And I think there are certain parts of like the process that I like love and relish in, and then there's certain parts that I hate and despise. I think of like,
but we can't say what it is.
No.
Oh, yeah, I was just about to ask, but I mean, if you can't tell me, I totally understand.
One might take general across all projects. Yeah. One of the things I like love on a process is, we go through this brainstorming phase where we're like, I'm just going to use a TV commercial as an example. Like we'll be writing scripts, and then we'll be presenting a few different scripts to clients. And there's this kind of, I think, really fun part where you've presented a few different scripts to client. They've chosen which one their favorite is, and you've kind of collectively said, all right, this is the commercial we're going to produce. And then you send it out to different production houses and get different directors that may or may not be, interested. And usually you narrow that down to a few, and you brief a few different directors on sort of what your vision for this commercial is, how you feel about it, how you see it coming to life. And then they take that away for, say, a week or so. They take your script, and then they give it some like kind of thought on what they would do to it and how they would like kind of add their touch to this spot. And then after about a week, you get these director treatments back. And that to me is always my favorite part of the process, because you've been living with this script maybe for a few weeks or a month, and you've probably presented it a number of times at this point. You kind of know it like the back of your hand. And I think it's always really fun to see when you get a director, especially when it's a director who you like really love their work, to see what they would add to it and how they envision it coming to life, what they think that opening scene is and how they shoot that, or how they might want to edit it, or, maybe they've taken a few of the scenes that you have and they've kind of evolved that and have an idea for a new one. And I always just like love seeing that. So the day we get our director treatments back is kind of like Christmas morning, and you're like opening your presents. It's always, I think, really exciting. And you're looking through the previous work that director's done and trying to see how that could be applied to the commercial that you've been working on. And that to me is just like such a fun collaborative sort of process where it's almost like the pressure's off us for a little bit. Like, all right, let's see our work, and you present it back to us to how you see it. And I love that part of the process and bringing in sort of third parties.
You nailed it.
So that's like one of my favorite parts of it. What I'd say my least favorite part of it is, and I've talked about this before, my least favorite part of the process from like getting briefed to a commercial being released is casting. I find that
that's interesting. That's not what I was thinking about.
I hate casting. It's one of those things where you're almost like forced to judge people. Mm-hmm. Like, what I mean? And, on a really, someone stands in a room, acts out a little scene, and you're like almost forced to like judge them. Like, does this person come off as like, empathetic father or something like that? And it's like, things like that. And I just think you're like, it's really uncomfortable and you're forced to do that. And I was watching the show The Studio with Seth Rogen, and they have an entire episode about them casting for the Kool-Aid movie. And I felt like it was like ripped from the pages of our own life, where they're like kind of having all these kind of weird, difficult conversations in the casting process. And I that is a part of the job that I'm like, when it's casting day, I'm like, I hate it. That's a part of the job I hate.
I love casting. Casting is so fun.
Gerardo, what's your least favorite part of the?
My least favorite part? I also really don't like casting. I agree with Jesse. It's always so uncomfortable because you have to judge the person by sometimes, honestly, just the way they look. It doesn't, and you have to describe why you don't like that person based on the character you're trying to build. And it's always, there's a little bit of guilt of like, oh, I don't like their hair. Like it's always like, wow, like, I really have to be judgmental, but I guess it's part of the job. But what I would say is one of my least favorite part. Okay, one of my favorite part is brainstorm to the first presentation. Mm-hmm. I love that feeling. Like obviously if it goes bad, I hate it. It's all part of it. But the first presentation to me, it's always special because it's kind of like the ta-da moment. You've been living with the brief, you've been living with kind of the ideas that you have in the last few weeks, and then you get to share it. And whether the reaction is good or bad, it's always a relief. It's almost like, okay, we got that down. Let's hear what everyone else has to say and see how it reacts. And, sometimes it's a home run. It's an amazing feeling. One thing I hate about the process, not even that I hate, I just don't enjoy it, is the middle part. Once everyone's kind of picked an area and it hits a lull for a bit. Because you have nowhere to go. You're not going to go higher. Sometimes you actually go lower. Like, that's kind of like you start thinking about, okay, what do we need to do now to bring this to life? Are there any like minor changes? And that necessarily not like a bad thing, but it's just a straight line until you get into production and then it's released again. So I think it's just that lull that happens in maybe like a month or a month and a half of just like waiting to see what will happen. And then you start briefing directors, and then you get director's treatment. And that moment again, it's like, wow, it reminds you how excited you are about the project, because now you're seeing the beginning of it kind of coming to life. Mm-hmm. So I think it's such a special moment.
I agree. That first presentation's like, the ideas are so like pure at that point, right? They're really, I think, all the ideas feel really clear, but I think just, naturally in this business, like, everyone has an opinion and there's so much say. And I think a lot of times, we always joke that like the ideas rarely get better in round two. Cause it's like you're, have a few pieces of feedback to adjust here and a few pieces there. And it's like, sometimes those things can conflict and sometimes the ideas get dulled down a little bit. And I think at Courage, what we really try and do is, and I think why we've been so successful is, trying to keep the ideas pure, like throughout the entire process. And I think there's a saying here that at Courage, that spin is sin. I think what you're referring to between that first presentation and the director briefing is projects can enter the spin zone where it's like someone high up who's not even involved in this project has a piece of advice that or some feedback that may or may not throw things off course. And I think what we try and do is really protect the work, protect the idea. So ultimately, the end consumer who hasn't been privy to all these different conversations and dialogues within an organization, the person seeing the commercial on TV is left with a really positive and clear impression of what they're being told, and also feel really like positive about the brand. I think when you throw too many different things at a viewer, they may not take it in. So when we say I'm trying to keep the idea sharp and pure, it is for the, I think, benefit of the end watcher, that they are left with a very, very clear takeaway from what they've just seen.
I can completely understand what you're saying, because I was actually just talking to a creative director at Amazon the other day, and they were kind of talking about how, like, the bureaucracy of going through the like having an idea and then going through a process of providing feedback, and like every team being involved in that process, which, like, obviously it's a freaking huge company. Of course, there's going to be so many levels that you have to be okayed with. He said that a lot of the time it kind of ruins like the idea in the first place, because it was like genuine and authentic and maybe fun or like unique, and then the more systems that it went through and the more approvals that it went through, it kind of like it became more lackluster of what the idea was initially. And so I do think that's a really great strong point to have, because it still keeps the idea, I don't want to say risky, because risky sounds like a bad buzzword, but like the more stages of approval and considerations that go through an idea, the less likely that it's going to end up being unique, because you're worried about all of these different things.
Yeah, exactly right.
And I think it's human nature to start kind of overthinking things, you know? I think that's the danger sometimes of like timelines, you know? I think when you enter a briefing to the production, sometimes it could take up to 6 months. That's almost half the year, and a lot can happen then, you know? And then I think that's just part of our job sometimes too, is to adapt. Because sometimes, you know, when you sell an idea at the time, it's perfect for the business. And things happen in the background that sometimes we don't know about that would affect it. But I think for us, it's kind of like, that's when communication is key. You know, like for us to understand, okay, what actually is affecting, or where's this feedback coming from? Because if it's a very specific feedback that now kind of kills the idea, maybe it's better to relook at it in a new way. Maybe it's better to move on from the idea that we talked about into something new that works with whatever situation we're in now.
I agree. There's always, like, I think when we're trying to defend the work, a lot of times when you get, you know, thoughts or feedback from clients, they often have, they're often very valuable. Like they have so much insight to their business or the product they're selling that, you know, that we may not have. So we're always, I think, trying to be respectful of that too. But then oftentimes there is feedback that comes through that may alter an idea enough that it fundamentally changes the idea. And I think that's either where we, you know, call our clients and say, maybe this is where we call a timeout, and, you know, is this something, if this feedback is like something that we like must do we, you know, maybe look at moving on and starting over, given this new piece of information, this new context we have. So and I think that's something Courage is really, really good at doing.
Yeah, and I prefer that sometimes, because I think you were saying, Shannon, like the more it goes up to the chain, sometimes when the idea changes and you lose what you're trying to say, and you launch it, at the end of the day, it becomes lackluster. No one's excited about it, you know, like, and there's nothing, to me, I'm like, there's nothing worse than launching a campaign and it's out in the world and it's just like nothing happened. You know, everyone's just like,
or it's something that you didn't want, like you didn't feel like really happy or good about it coming out, because it wasn't necessarily what you wanted it to be, because it went through so many systems. That must be like kind of heartbreaking as a creative to happen.
Yeah, I think
it happens. It's all part of it.
Yeah.
This, as we kind of grow more into, you know, like to our careers and learn more and experience, I think you learn how to kind of make sure you let go and you can move on to the next thing. You know, it's all about, it's like baseball. You're at bat. Sometimes you're going to strike out. Sometimes you're going to home run. Sometimes you're going to do a base hit. So I think it's important to keep that in mind.
Did you guys coordinate the sport hats today? Did you guys?
We did it with about 6 million other people in the city of Toronto right now. I was on this morning, and everyone is wearing Jays gear, which is, I think, probably my favorite thing about sports is like, we had a work dinner last night, and the baseball game was on, and I walked home, so it was near my house, and as I was walking home after the game, I was just like kind of like high-fiving people on the street, and everyone on the street's wearing like their, Toronto Blue Jays gear. And I just love the way that sports kind of builds this connection with strangers and in a way that feels so powerful. It's like you instantly have a point of connection or something to talk about. So not sure when this podcast is being released, but hopefully, when it does come out, we are World Series winners, and I've hugged every stranger in Toronto celebrating this victory.
I completely understand the camaraderie. As we talked about earlier, Philadelphia is probably one of the craziest places with
this. Yeah. I remember hearing some crazy stories and seeing some crazy videos when the Eagles.
We all know what those crazy videos are.
When the Eagles won, I remember seeing some like, whoa, Philly's hardcore. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they're all of the teams are like, I would say Phillies specifically is probably like the most low key of the fan bases in Philadelphia, but it's still pretty grungy. So it's that's just how it is here. But the camaraderie around it is absolutely insane. Like you can't walk down the street with any kind of Eagles merch without someone going "Go Birds" at you, like a stranger. Yeah. Always it's very funny, but it's pretty awesome. So I completely understand, and I'm rooting for your team because I can't root for mine. So. But since we're coming up on time a little bit, I do want to kind of talk more about your relationship with like having been partners for so long. Like, tell me a little more about how you make that work, because of course I'm sure that you sometimes, and maybe you agree all the time, which would be absolutely insane and really impressive. But like, if you guys have creative differences, how do you kind of work through them? How do you maintain this partnership in a healthy way? It's something that I think a lot of people find difficult sometimes.
We violently fight each other. Have you ever seen Fight Club, where you fight each other and then you're friends again?
Yeah, it's like the men.
we just box.
Yeah, we just box. I would say, I think generally, I think what made our partnership work in it's been years now, it's like we share the same sensibilities, and kind of, I think with that, when we converse and we kind of share ideas, and if Jesse doesn't like my idea, he would kind of share a perspective onto why that goes back into the things that we both like. So I think that's like, if we were like a diagram, we were the middle. We always find the middle.
I would say, for me, I grew up like in high school, in my early 20s. I was always in bands, and we were, you tour around as musicians. And I feel like I was, in those kind of formative years, I spent so much time in really close proximity for very long periods of time with like 3 or 4 other guys, and always in kind of very high pressure situations, having to make decisions. And I think that experience taught me about, I guess, sort of this, like spending a lot of time with another person and having to always be in high pressure situations making decisions, and you kind of learn when to like back off, when to give someone their space, but also when to kind of like push each other. And I think the main thing that I think we share that has resulted in us having a very successful partnership is neither one of us is like kind of lazy. I think sometimes when you get really comfortable with another person, you can, especially in a situation like this, you can be like, we'll crack this idea tomorrow, or you can kind of like some people can allow each other the leeway to maybe slack off. And I think that's kind of the opposite of us. I think every day we come in being like, today we're going to fucking take over the world. Like, and it's almost like we're almost trying to like impress each other or one up each other in terms of the quality of our work or the ideas or the craft. So I think we share that same sort of like drive and mentality. And I think that is sort of the unique thing, because I have seen other partnerships where it's like they do become so comfortable with one another that they lose that like fire, that oomph. And I think that's one thing we've tried to like actively fight to maintain is like, you know, it's not a healthy competition, but it's a little bit of we're always like on the same page trying to, you know, level up. So
we share the same goals, and I think in our career, like, you know, we have to do it today. Today's the day. I think that's always the attitude, except Mondays. Mondays for us is hard.
Yeah. We always say there's like make it through Mondays.
Take over the world Tuesday.
Take over the world Tuesday. Monday's about setting up your week for, you know, what you're going to do this week. Take your necessary meetings. It's for the work that you got to do. And then Tuesday, it's like, you know, get out of my way, watch out world. This is like every good idea we've always cracked. It's always been on a Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm not sure I've ever cracked anything amazing on a Monday.
Have we ever done it Tuesday? Because
Thursdays.
We have to do it today.
Yeah. Today's Thursday. We got to crack some stuff today. Wish it was Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just how, like, I think communication is also such an important part of it. And, you know, so much of your personal life can seep into your professional life, especially in this career where like, you know, the work we do is so personal and the lines get blurred. So I think, you know, communicating and having those sort of like guardrails, I think is really important. And I think ultimately, like, we actively also talk a lot about the work that we love or work that inspired us and stuff like that. So I think that has allowed us to sharpen our own sort of creative skills.
And I would say, like, even outside advertising,
of course,
like things that, like, movies, I think you have to keep continuing kind of sharing things that I find cool and things that you find, you know, interesting. Because I think, as I said earlier, it helps create like cohesion with what we're liking. And I think that ultimately will lead into, at least for us, when we're brainstorming references. Oh, that thing we talked about, that thing we shared the other day.
I think that's bang on. It's you develop this shorthand. We're like, oh, you're trying to, just I'm using some bad examples. You're trying to write a script, but what if the characters talked, you know, had a dialogue like the movie we just saw? And both you know, like reference that, and that becomes a joint reference point. So I think the thing that we probably share the most, despite having very different backgrounds and, you know, growing up across the world from each other, is we both love the same stuff, whether it's ads, whether it's movies, whether it's music. I feel like our taste overlaps like perfectly. Yeah. So I think that helps make our work sort of strong and helps us work very efficiently.
Yeah, I think it's really valuable to be able to pull inspiration from different things too and be able to share that, because often when I speak with different marketers specifically, they kind of mention that they will see something that is completely unrelated to marketing or just like completely even unrelated to a campaign that they're working on that they maybe need to draw inspiration from something for. And you can see something so unbelievably unrelated to what you're doing and still kind of almost use its process as like a reflection of that. And I think that a lot of people, when they don't have like an eye for that, don't realize that those things are important to share, because it could always, you can draw inspiration from anything for advertising, for creative, for marketing. There is so much of the world that is just seated in marketing tactics, and to be able to be creative and unique and stand out, you kind of have to draw inspiration from things that people already like, and that's a perfect way of doing it.
I agree completely. You know, I actually wrote an article earlier this year about that exact thing, and I think as a creative, part of your job is to be a creative sponge and be able to take in a lot of things. So part of that is, you know, I always try and stay up to date on, you know, whatever the newest movie or album that's being released, or just as simple as sports. A lot of the work we do at Courage is around the world of like around the world of sports, because I think that's kind of one of the last pieces of like monoculture, where it's everyone collectively is kind of, you know, watching the same thing together. So we've done a lot of work in the sports world that we wouldn't have been able to do if we weren't actively sports fans and like taking in that information. So I do feel like the things that you kind of like input in your brain certainly affect the things that you output creatively.
Yeah, and even speaking of that, so you guys have had a lot of award-winning work, which is incredible. Congratulations for everything that you've done thus far. What is one of the biggest lessons that you've learned from one of these campaigns that you felt like kind of changed the trajectory of how you think about things now?
I have a good answer for this because I want to talk about the recent campaign for Rona we released, and I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned is when the work is personal, it always makes the work stronger. The work that we just released for Rona is all about hockey homes and how in Canada we are hockey obsessed, and hockey seeps its way into so many different sort of facets of Canadian life. And when I was a kid, we played road hockey, and pucks were dinging across our parents' garage doors, and we played mini sticks inside that was scuffing up the floors, and our laundry room was filled with smelly hockey bags. And that was so much of my childhood. And the recent Rona commercial that we just released is about sort of this ode to hockey homes, and kind of saying, no matter what hockey does to your home, Rona can help you fix it or build it back. So bring on the hockey, because you don't have to worry, because Rona help you fix it. And to me, I think the reason I'm so proud of that project, and I think the reason that it's doing so well right now, is because it was personal. It was because of our own lived experiences and our own personal insight. So I think that there's this sort of idea, I think, that a lot of people have, where it's you have your work self and then your sort of personal self, and that those two things are separate. And I think what's interesting with this career is your work is stronger when you put yourself into it, and when you you can actually your lived experience is showing up in the work. So to me, that's I think a big lesson I learned. I look back at all the different kind of projects that I feel really proud of over our career, and I can see an element of something personal in each one of those. I think back last year of we released a project for KFC. It was all about superstitions, and I feel when I watch sports, I'm so superstitious. I'm one of those things oh my God, I was sitting in that chair where they scored that goal, so I should go back and sit in that chair. And I think
I would have sit on one of our couches. I sat on it, and they strike that. I was oh my God, I gotta go.
I gotta get up.
I think it's your own lived experiences, and I think putting that into the work is one of the biggest lessons that I've learned to make the work stronger. It's putting in your own beliefs, your own tastes, your own thoughts.
That's bang on.
Yeah,
I think just to add something to that, with the recent Rona project that we have, and I think it reminded me that, and I think we talked about this before, it reminded me that the right idea brings the right people together. I think it's when the magic happens. I know people all talk about this magic happening, but I genuinely think when people believe in the idea, the right people come to make it happen, and then the right person, they all come together, and that's when it becomes less work and more of creating. And I think it's a special process, right? Of you see everyone kind of going from I just gotta get this done into no, this is a special thing that we have to build together, and I love that process. And I think the recent Rona projects just reminded me of that. So I think your question also reminded me of that. It reminded me of that. So thank you.
It sounded like this was a beautiful campaign for both of you. I'm really happy about that. Especially I do think that I do agree that a personal touch is really important for anything to be successful, because there's almost stakes. There's more stakes to that of making it perfect is not, perfection doesn't really exist, but you know what I'm saying when I say perfect, is that it you really come out in that campaign, and others kind of feel more attached to it too if they're excited about it, because they have a personal stake in it as well. And that's exactly what you want, because if your team feels that personal stakes, then people who are watching it will obviously have a similar feeling, because those are the best campaigns that you can create, is having that attachment all across the board. You can feel the care that went into an advertisement. That's what you want.
Exactly.
100%. It's if we want people and the viewers to feel something about what they're seeing, it's that has to start with us, and we have, as the creators of it, we have to put our emotion and feeling into it as well. So
I 100% agree. And I think that's a really perfect note to end on because we were approaching time. But I thought that was a really wholesome way to end this episode. So I really appreciate you guys sharing.
What can I say?
Thank you so much for joining me today, guys. This is absolutely lovely. It's really lovely to kind of understand how your partnership works. And I hope that other people can maybe take advice from this as well for their own kind of relationships within the industry, because it seems like you guys have something really wonderful, so that I don't see all the time. So it was wonderful talking to you today about what you're excited about and what you're doing now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you guys so much. And thank you everyone for listening. Don't forget to check out Jesse and Gerardo in the description. And I hope you guys have a lovely day. Bye.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest. And to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend and, of course, subscribe.